Well, thank you for joining us. If you just tuned in, well, you missed a lot, but you join us at a very good time too, because we're now going to get into the newspapers and tell you what's making headlines. We're done with the AM News. Joseph Akable is here to help us with the review. Good morning, Joseph.
Good morning, Mavi. How are you doing?
I'm good. Yourself?
I'm great. I'm in great spirits. Yesterday, I predicted Legon Presec will go through. The schools that Joseph predicted will go through are actually knocked out. I thought it's important that we revisit this all-important subject. And the margin, you saw what happened, Legon Presec did, the margin.
Yeah,
so I'm very excited.
With that contest, I don't know. I think it was the Adisco one. That was the one that, the second contest of the day. I guess that was a really tough one.
Yeah, it's got more of a nail-biting contest, right?
Absolutely.
To the very final minutes where a question has to be picked to give someone the lead. Very tough contest it was. But it's either the questions were too difficult or the contestants were not good enough because of the score they had. They had about 20-something. Even as at round 4, they were still less than 20, and that tells you if you compare to what Legon Presec did. And so those are the two options: either the contestants were not good, or the questions were too tough,
or they had tough opponents. Because you see, when you have, I don't want to say weaker opponents, but if your opponent is not able to answer, it comes to you, so you can make a lot of points from others, not necessarily because you answered your questions correctly. So it could be that as well.
It could be that, but what we saw in the Presec contest was that the guys are going for accuracy rather than speed. And so there were many instances where they were not the first to ring the bell, but it goes round. Then when they ring the bell, eventually they get the answer right. I don't know how they were doing that.
It takes a lot of experience and guts to want to do that. Because we've seen that in some of the other contests. It's not because the young people didn't know. They did, but sometimes they rushed, and you find the quiz mistress even saying, if only you had waited. Like the next clue would give you the answer, you would have gotten it, but you rushed it.
Yeah.
They've stayed back and watched a lot of them, so they've mastered their crafts, and this is their the set time they want to win the trophy, so they are quite experienced. But today is 7th of October. In exactly 2 months, we will be going to the polls. It's very, very close now.
Wow, it's amazing. I just remember the 2016 election, and it's just so soon, 4 years down the line.
Okay, we'll continue to preach peace, though. It's exchange of ideas. We're not going to fight. You just go and vote and go away and watch JoyNews. We'll tell you the results as we do every 4 years. It's your election headquarters. Let's do the review. Joseph, you start with the Times or the Daily Guide?
I'll start with the front page of the Ghanaian Times.
Okay.
That election story says a president files nomination for re-election bid. And another story here says Kennedy Agyapong's excuse duty is genuine, doctor tells courts. And president launches global business initiative to connect young people to entrepreneurs, investors worldwide. And I have no link to secessionist group, Volta Regional Minister. You can find details of that story. The back page of the Ghanaian Times says government to raise bonds to address housing deficit. Adan East Island communities to get mini grid. Also on the back page of the Ghanaian Times. The Daily Guide says a president pays DK Poison $45,000 loan after 44 years. And Nathaniel Ato did a story on the boxing loan.
A documentary, actually.
Yeah, a documentary, yes. And already I've seen some lawyers raise some arguments about this particular issue. And so there are some who are arguing that it should come with interest.
Of course.
And there are others who are arguing that if you read a letter from the presidency closely, you realize that whoever authored the letter was thinking legally, in that the grounds for the payment is compassionate grounds. And so the other argument is that the state is not acknowledging the existence of the debt, neither is it disputing it, it's simply saying that I'm paying this amount on compassionate grounds. And so the question remains that, okay, so the person has not actually acknowledged the debt, but he's paying you this amount. And so would you say that, the debt has even been acknowledged to even make a demand for with interest in the first place?
We should ask those making that argument if they would lend $45,000 to Ghana.
it hasn't been paid actually for 44 years. I mean, it's not in doubt.
Did you ask them?
Yeah, but he has been demanding for 44 years. So that is the issue there. But I mean, the good thing is that at least the state is trying to pay the original amounts. But $45,000 44 years ago.
Yeah.
This was our first world champion, and for someone like me who has an interest in boxing, it introduced me to how the feeling was at that time. And you know, Azuma is considered one of the greatest boxers from Africa. And Azuma was talking about what it meant to him as a boy when DK Poison won that title. And it led to, we have 9 world champions, including
the Daily Graphic on page 20 actually has a response from DK Poison. It says, "I'm happy to get refund at last." So a bit of that. Ghanaian boxing legend David Kote Poison says he's a happy man and finally at peace after President Akufo-Addo directed that an amount of $45,000 owed him by the state be paid to him on compassionate grounds. A close associate of the boxer has revealed. Closer home once you watch it. But back on the front page of the Daily Graphic, conduct fair elections. President charges Electoral Commission after filing. Council of State Graphic pledge support for Rollins. I'm happy to get refund at last. DK Poison, that details that I shared. Post-COVID-19 recovery, business recovery initiative launched is also another story there. In the back page of the paper today. Work begins on 3 mini-power grids at Ada. Doctor justifies Kennedy Agyapong's excuse duty. The man who was in court is here. He's brought us a very extensive report, which we shared with you in our AM News. But I usually like the backstory, you know, the one that doesn't make, you don't find space for it in the story itself, the juicy parts. So, Joseph.
Yes.
They wanted an in-camera hearing.
I remember that request being made minimum of 6 times, either by the doctor's lawyer or Mr. Kennedy Agyapong's lawyers. In fact, Mr. Fenyo Markin, a member of Mr. Agyapong's legal team, introduced an interesting phrase. He says gallery interpretation. It says the media is engaged in gallery interpretation and I mean creating all sorts of impression. And so if we are allowed to listen to whatever is transpiring in court, that will happen again. And so he asked that if the judge, because he had said they should go into chambers and the judge rejected it, then he raised the issue again that at least they should clear, because the judge had made a point that even chambers is not safe because his office is very small and COVID-19, they have to space out. They said, okay, then the option is that they should clear the courtroom of the journalists and the others in there so that they could have, I mean, opportunity to listen to the doctor. And his explanation or the reason for that application that he made was that this borders on someone's medical records, and he doesn't understand how the doctor can speak to the excuse duty without talking about Mr. Agyapong's condition, which will breach the client-doctor privilege.
Hang on, what question did the judge raise?
He had not even started asking the questions. Immediately they came in, he said he was come to speak to the excuse duty, which had been submitted to the court. And so even before he asked his first question, the objection was raised. Then he rejected
but this objection was not raised when the judge requested that he wanted to see the doctor the first time?
No, it wasn't raised, no.
Okay, but it was after he appeared?
Yeah, that it was raised.
So they wanted to sack you guys?
Yeah. We're seated quietly at the back. I mean, one of those occasions when people are pushing to determine your fate of a sort and you have no say in it. But I mean, that's the process. And the judge...
But I haven't heard that any of you, those of you reporting on this particular case, any of you has misrepresented the facts. There hasn't been anything like that. And this judge pays attention to details. If any of you reporters had done anything like that, he would have raised it in the courtroom.
In fact, the judge made that point, and he says that, I mean, he expects that we report what reflects the proceedings of the day. And so, as far as he's concerned, that is the advice that he will give. But he actually emphasized the fact that the pressmen were important to the proceedings, and this is a matter of national interest. And so he doesn't think the client-doctor privilege will be breached, especially if they stay off the man's medical records and just limit it to the excuse duty. And an important question the judge asked the doctor to comment on was what he makes of the view that the excuse duty was calculated to delay the court, in that they came to court on a Friday. a Saturday, or they're supposed to come back on a Monday. Then a Monday, we are told that this is an excuse duty that was written on a Saturday, excusing him from activities for 14 days. And the doctor commented that, I mean, he assessed the situation and he came to the conclusion that these are the number of days that he needs. He says he gave him some medication and it's the side effect that is taking place now, for which reason he thinks he needs that number of days to get well. So at the end of the whole testimony, giving the questions and answering and everything, the judge now says he wants to make some comments at the end. And he now talks about the fact that as professionals, we need to be very ethical to ensure that this nation, Ghana, does not go the wrong way.
But who is he speaking to?
I have no idea. At this point, he had discharged the doctor and he said he wants to make these comments and he wants the comments to be captured on record. And so I guess the doctor was still there, but he had discharged the doctor. So I don't know whether it was directed at the doctor or was directed at all of us. But the point he made was that, I mean, you should, he says that as professionals, we should be ethical to ensure that we build this nation, else we risk destroying this nation. Well,
I think he was speaking to everybody in the courtroom, including you, the journalist, because you've come to repeat what he said, which is very important. So you've sent that message across to a lot more people than he could have reached. But it seemed to me that the reason he wanted the doctor, and he didn't say it the first time, but it was just the timing. The timing for that excuse duty.
Yes. In fact, the doctor at a point did make the case that ordinarily when you're on such drugs, it should be for 5 to 7 days. But it's because of the unusual nature of his condition. That's why he made it the 14 days. And the other concern the judge had was that he also realized that, normally for excuse duty, you indicate that come for review at a certain point in time. And so you're saying that he noticed that this one, 14 straight days, it doesn't make any reference to a review. But the doctor explained that it's because of the unusual nature of the condition. And so the excuse duty ends on October 10.
October 10.
October 10. Then on October 10 is a Saturday. And October 12, Mr. Agyapong's lawyers have an application before the same judge. Asking him to hold on with his proceedings. Then on October 13, there's another one at the Supreme Court, which they have also filed. And the Supreme Court by that time would have resumed from the vacation. So that is their situation now.
So when is Mr. Agyapong himself expected to appear after the...
Obviously, after October 10, he has no reason not to show up in court unless another excuse duty maybe is extended because his condition is not getting any better. But I'm sure we all wish him a speedy recovery.
Oh, absolutely, we do. Because Parliament is back, I'm not sure.
Yes, it also came up, and the doctor, so the judge asked the doctor whether he was aware Parliament was on recess and that they were resuming yesterday. And the doctor said they can ask 90% of doctors. He's very sure that they don't know whether Parliament is on recess or resuming. So the judge's question now was that, okay, so does this excuse duty include Parliament? Then his response was that it's for all activities, and so he doesn't expect him to go to Parliament as well.
Charlie, this is my judge of the year. What's his name again?
Wuntawuni, Justice Wuntawuni.
I need to keep that name. Okay, let's move on. The Daily Dispatch, front page, chiefs must follow the Asante-Hennes endorsement style. Party to earn €1 million a month at, no, £1 million a month. Oh, that's Pate. I was just linking to the politics. Political parties will earn £1 million. Okay, had asked now the impacts of running made focus on Dr. Bawumia and Professor Opoku Agyeman demanding tight during COVID-19 unthinkable, according to Cardinal Texting. This is rather very interesting. A bit of the details as it is here. It is unacceptable for churches to squeeze money from members in COVID-19 times. Cardinal Peter Kojo-Texting has said he holds the view that the church should be supporting members at a time people are experiencing the adverse effects of the pandemic and not vice versa. The pandemic has resulted in thousands of job losses, with many businesses shutting completely or downsizing. But Cardinal Texting holds the view that church leaders should desist from asking members to squeeze water out of stone. There's more what he had to say. Very, very interesting. And I think I heard, Joseph, that there was a certain church that was given back to members, but I don't think it's Ghana. They were putting money in envelopes.
It's not in Ghana.
It's not in Ghana, right? Ah, okay. All right. Okay. So our producer this morning, Seriam Abla de Souza, says in her church they do it. House of Miracles. I'll come to House of Miracles so I can take away. Joseph, any other papers you have?
Yes, I have the Finder newspaper. The front page says, I want to win a December elections on merit. And another story says, Ghana joins global partnership to rescue businesses ravaged by COVID-19. Parliament charges national security to quell secessionist threats. And debt suspension cancellation pose major risks. Is coming from the Bank of Ghana.
All right, let's quickly run through the Daily Statesman. Front page, MPP women charged to lead Akufo-Addo's campaign, provide level playing field for all. Akufo-Addo charges the Electoral Commission as he files nomination for 4 more to do more. DK Poison to be paid $45,000. Loan to Ghana. That's it for the Daily Statesman. At least that's how the front page looks like. The Pate story is on the back page. Arsenal completes £45 million deal for Atletico Madrid midfielder. The custodian, Akufo-Addo, files 4 more years, denounces cooked election results. The former president, Mahama, also said a similar thing, right? When he said he would reject the results of a flawed election. They're all speaking the same language, aren't they? All right, let's do the National Enquirer. That's the last paper, and then we'll do myjournline.com. The full text of NDC's The People's Jumapa Manifesto is in today's edition. Okay, so produce audit report on cocoa roads now. Mahama Des Akufo-Addo. Also, Mahama is committed to developing Ghana, improving livelihoods, according to Nana Opoku Ajiman. Well, there are other stories. Mahama files presidential nomination on October 7, which is today, according to Peter Otokuno. All right, so that's it for the paper, the National Enquirer. Joseph, any story you want to highlight?
I think there's a story about the president commenting on the election and saying that he doesn't want to win a flawed elections. I mean, it's an interesting comment.
Crooked.
Okay, so I mean it's an interesting election. But the other thing I noticed too was that in 2016 I actually covered the filing of nomination form. The president, then the NPP's candidate, was actually the first to file his form, and back then he said that you see, I'm the first to submit the paper, and I'll be the first when the election is over. And he did. He was indeed the first. And then in 2020, this time around, he's saying that he's going to be the first again. But this time around, he wants to win an election that is credible. And we understand that the NDC is also going over to submit the form. And the EC did the process online, but it's the submission that needs to be done manually. And what's interesting about this time around is that in the past, there have been issues about the disqualification of some candidates. Now, this time around, they said they've set up 2 committees. There's a legal committee and there's an IT committee. And the legal committee will, more importantly, go through and see whether the forms that have been filled conforms to the requirement of law and whether or not everything is okay with it. While the IT committee will be looking at issues relating to the persons who endorsed the form, as to whether they are actually registered voters as they claim to be, and all the other issues before a decision will be taken to give someone a green light to contest or not. And if you recall, in 2016, they disqualified someone like Dr. Papakwesi Indum. It ended up in court. And that's how the first time I encountered this judge I know you admire a lot, Justice Eric Bafo.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's the one who ruled on that particular case, the PPP versus the Electoral Commission, which eventually ended up at the Supreme Court because the court ruled in favor of the PPP. The EC filed asking for the intervention of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court disagreed with the EC on that particular score. And so this time around, we hope that they're able to deal with these form issues quickly. And more importantly, one thing that the PPP case came up or established was the fact that the bit about the fair hearing, once you identify the mistakes, the question the court asked the EC's lawyers was that, did they give them an opportunity to correct those mistakes, or they simply said, you have been disqualified? So that is one thing that the EC should look at. Else we'll have a running legal hurdles again. Like
and we don't have time for that. We don't have the luxury of time, particularly at this time. Let's do myjoyonline.com. You'll find some very interesting stories on myjoyonline.com, one that we'll highlight. But this issue we've talked about was Kennedy Agyapong's medical excuse duty calculated to delay court. Judge asked doctor. The thing I like about your write-ups, Joseph, is that you bring us the angles that we don't normally hear. You know, sometimes people just go for the obvious, but when you read the write-ups, you get a proper understanding of how things played out in court. So, big ups. There are other stories. There's a video: police retrieve firearms stolen by Volta secessionists. This issue about the Electoral Commission that we've talked about. CPP's Ivor Green Street selects Professor Emmanuel Bobobe as running mates. Interesting. Okay, there's another story that I want to talk about. Good man Amewu will only go to heaven, not parliament. That's according to the General Secretary.
I read a story. He said he's a very good man, but
yes,
his goodness will take him to heaven.
He
not
says
parliament.
He's in the wrong political party. Essentially, that's what he's
So his goodness will take him to heaven, not parliament.
But why not parliament? Like, what does that mean?
He's good, but wrong party. So you have to go to heaven, not parliament.
Well, so there's plenty more stories on myjoyonline.com that you can read. And of course, the big one, Presec set for a Disco Owas NSMQ finale clash. And they're on our show today as we look at preparations ahead of the finals. Joseph, any other thing?
No, we're just looking forward to the interaction you'll be having with the NSMQ guys.
Do you have a favorite? I mean, you keep mentioning Presec. You didn't go to Presec.
Yes, I explained why.
Because of the university.
I explained why.
Because of the university.
In fact, I was pushed to the wall to select Presec because Joseph was settling on schools that are from the area he comes from. And I said that unfortunately for me, there's no school from the Western region, the Nzima area.
So is that the standard? I mean, that was his choice.
Yeah, so I also made a choice that I prefer, Legon Presec because of proximity to the University of Ghana, Legon. Oreku
is definitely Presec.
Yeah,
well,
so
I like the fact that this is Ashanti, Central, and Greater Accra.
Okay.
So it's gone beyond the three schools. There's now a clash between the three regions.
I'm not too sure whether the Sir Kanish guys will be supporting Legon Presec. You know the Sir Kanish guys?
The what?
Oh, Sir Kanish, you don't take public.
Oh, Seko Kanishi.
The Kanishi school. There's a school at First Light. When you're coming from the castle, you say you are light at First Light. They were kicked out yesterday. Yeah.
That's not fair.
Oh, it's very fair.
Do you know how far they went?
Oh, how far?
Yesterday's competition was semi-finals. Hello.
Oh, okay. So next year, when you are talking about the winners, you'll be recounting those who were in the semi-finals.
So mention the name of the school and stop saying Kadishi First Light.
And First Light school.
Okay, so we'll see how things go down when they join us on the show. But listen, we were thinking, honestly, and we were all pushing for a girls' school to at least get into the finals and get the opportunity to win the trophy, but that hasn't come true again this year. Something hasn't worked for the girls. I don't know. Yesterday we were talking about Ola girls and what may have gone wrong. It's not like they didn't know. I don't know. Like, I'm not sure. What's the issue?
I think,
and this is not just Ola. This is the girls' school we're talking about.
Yeah. And it's what it's worrying is you see the quiz mistress, the brilliant Dr. Kaufman, and a lot of in fact, I've not seen a male quiz master in the contest yet. You know, so you have brilliant women who are doing so well in the fields of maths and science, leading this particular whole contest, and you don't have any girls' school being able to win it. I mean, I think they need to be strategic and work towards winning. And it will be important that I'm told that St. Augustine's, I know of the situation at St. Augustine's, that right from first year, they identify the students after they take their first exam. Then they are put in the science and maths club where they are trained. And so by second year, some of them get a chance to contest. And it's same at St. Peter's too. And so that's how come you have people who even contest twice. So they do it when they're in second year, when they're in third year as well. And so I think the other schools, the girls' schools especially, they should be more strategic and deliberate about identify the talent early and training them to be able to compete. And maybe next year, we never know, we may be discussing a girls' school that has won this competition.
Yeah. Well, before we go, let's do the BBC. There's this story: White House aide test positive as military leaders quarantine. So COVID-19 is spreading further among those around U.S. President Donald Trump, with White House advisor Stephen Miller and a top military official infected. That story is right there. Meanwhile, they have another presidential debate, and the president says that he will take part in that debate. It looks like.
Should I tell you what someone told me?
Oh, yeah.
He said since Kennedy Agyapong's post-COVID-19 complications happened, Trump has gotten COVID and recovered, and he's going to debate now. So that's how long it has taken. Yeah.
Listen, we know that there are people who have suffered. There are complications after recovery. That's another thing. You remember we've talked about people suffering.
Being impotent.
Sometimes it's headache, continuous headache, fatigue. We've even heard about some people being impotent and so on and so forth. So when you think you recovered,
you need to be careful.
You need to be careful, absolutely. I mean, as for Mr. Trump, there is a reason he's doing that. He's got a very important election coming up, and he doesn't have time, and he has to look strong, appear to be strong for his following, if you like. All right, that's it for the review. Joseph, thanks a lot. We'll make way for Oreko Ampo for more Pate news, other stories to share in sports. Stay with us.